You've also told two other remarkable stories about two remarkable women, Paula Murphy and Betty Skelton. Tell us a little bit about both.
Betty, I don't think anyone in 20th century transportation history really like impacted every form of transportation like Betty Skelton, from
Mm.
being an champion aviator, international aviator before she was 25, to racing Corvettes as part of the first Corvette team with Zora Duntov and John Fitch. She was setting speed records on the beach. She became the first vice president of marketing for the agency that represented GM, and invented things like endurance races and things like that. So she could actually get to race some because she was only allowed to do speed records. Um, she did the NASA astronaut test with the astronauts. She was the only one to do that at NASA because of a promotion by Look magazine. And the reason she got that was because the astronauts had actually seen her fly in bad weather when they wouldn't fly back in the day. So they kind of knew her as like a tough cookie, even for as petite and as, beautiful as she was. She just was ever, there wasn't a newspaper for about, 10 years that didn't have the name Betty Skelton in it someday. I mean, they were even going to salons, and I was like, who is this woman and how have I not met her? I mean, she's been around stock cars, she's been around all these different events. And then I found out one time she was actually in 1998, literally feet from where I was standing in a picture I saw. And I just wanted to cry because I was like, oh my gosh, I should have met her. Um, so, um, so when I learned of her story and started reading again, it's one of those things that COVID does, right? Like you're reading about people and you're reading about things that maybe you didn't have time to. And talking to a friend of mine who was starting a women in motorsports group, we just started talking about all these women that were forgotten. And Betty was the top of the list. She had a gold Corvette that Bill Mitchell had built for her at GM because she couldn't race. So they had her pacing all the NASCAR races. She was like able to pace them to the green flag, but she couldn't race them.
Wow.
Like even though, there were some women like Louise Smith and Sarah Christensen there and, in different short tracks, it was, Betty kind of became like, you know, the woman that, Paul Goldsmith before he passed away told me that she was a bigger celebrity than any of them. Like she would get the media, she brought fans, they all knew she could race, but she just didn't get the chance. And then Paula Murphy is the next iteration because Betty had actually tested an Indy car at the Dodge Proving Grounds when she was originally with Dodge before she went to GM and the Corvette. And she got in a car and did a few laps there. So she was technically the first woman to be in an Indy car. And then Paula, she's even more fascinating because, yes, she starts in drag racing. She's first woman to get her funny car license in the NHRA. Um, but she's becomes this promotional person for Andy Granatelli. But in being a promotional person, she gets these opportunities to race. And Andy's looking for a woman. She's on the West Coast. She's racing Ferraris. She's racing sports cars. She's racing against some of the best sports car racers on the West Coast. And Andy's looking for someone to help Studebaker and recover because they're trying to compete with these other brands. And he thinks they should go to the Salt Flats. So he goes to a writer who's an LA Times motorsports writer and says, I want to put a woman in a car at the Salt Flats. Who can I call? And he recommends Paula. And then he decides to do a women's team. So it's Paula and another driver, and the two of them set all these records on the salt for Studebaker and Andy, and that gets Andy's attention. So now every time that he's doing different, he has different ideas, and he's trying to help her get opportunities to race. So he sponsors her funny car. Then it's really on a whim she does her first laps at Indianapolis, which are about 2 weeks before the Kennedy assassination. So that's why I think sometimes it gets forgotten that she did this monumental thing. Um, they were there. Andy and she were on some sort of promotional tour. They stopped at the Speedway. There was a test going on, and Eddie Sachs was there. AJ Foyt was there. And if you look at the old film, there it's comical. Like he gets Clarence Cagle and the Holmans to allow her to get in. the Novi, which is a notoriously hard car to race, hard car to even get into gear. She's never seen the car. She's going to get her 4 rookie laps because that's all they're allowed. And she's only got 4 laps with no practice, not even seeing the car before then, to actually do pace and prove that. And if she messes it up, no other woman's going to get a chance to do this, because if she wrecks the car, that's it. And when you look at the film, it's comical. Eddie's holding her purse, and they're helping her in the car like she's so fragile. And she's like, if you knew Paula, Paula, it was like, just let me get in the darn car, for crying out loud. They're making her put lipstick on before she drives it. And then she does 4 laps. And in Andy's book, he says she went almost 170 miles an hour. She went 168 miles an hour, which was at that time fast enough to, at least be a rookie qualifier at Indy. And she didn't disappoint. And that's how she was when she got in the stock car at Talladega. She had never seen the car. They didn't even have a seat for her. She said at one point, her arm got caught between the seat and the roll bar, because her arm was so small, and it was Richard Petty's car. And she's like trying to drive the car on a wet Talladega and go, set these speed records. And she was incredible. There was never a test session for her, go out to the salt flats in a jet engine, Arfon's car and set a record. But you don't get to see the car. You just have to put a pillow under your seat so you can see above the controls and just go. That's how her life was. And she never let anyone down. And if she had messed up at one corner, she would have set women back for years. And I think, when I said that to her, she hadn't really thought about it on that level, I don't think. But I think, before she passed away last year, I think she really realized the doors she opened for women. And this is a time, these women are doing things when women weren't allowed in the pits, weren't allowed in the garage, were barely allowed on pit road. They were bad luck. They were seen as bad luck. To have the guts to do it, she was definitely female Evel Knievel. I mean, she had the guts to go out there and do what she did.